let's talk about something most people don't want to face: toxic relationships. The ones that drain your energy, distort your self-worth, and make you question who you really are. We stay in them because we care, because we hope, because we're afraid to walk away. But here's the truth: you cannot heal in the same place that keeps breaking you. You see, leaving a toxic relationship isn't about anger or revenge. It's about reclaiming your peace. It's about saying, "I deserve better," even when your voice shakes. It's about recognizing that love should never cost you your self-respect. I've seen people hold on until they lose themselves completely. And I've seen the strength it takes to finally walk away, to rebuild, to rediscover, to rise again. That's real power. That's emotional courage. So today, we're going to talk about how to recognize toxicity, how to detach without guilt, and how to rebuild your life with boundaries, self-worth, and strength. Because the moment you choose yourself, you stop being a victim and start becoming unstoppable. Recognizing the red flags early is one of the most powerful forms of self-protection you can practice. Most of us don't want to see the signs when someone's behavior starts crossing the line. We tell ourselves they're just having a bad day, that maybe we're overreacting, or that things will get better. But what you ignore in the beginning becomes the pattern you learn to tolerate later. Disrespect doesn't start as a storm, it begins as a drizzle, sarcasm disguised as humor, subtle put-downs masked as jokes, small manipulations that make you question your own feelings. When you learn to notice these small acts of disrespect for what they are, you give yourself the power to step back before you're too deep in a relationship that chips away at your confidence. Every toxic relationship begins with boundaries that were crossed and excused. Maybe someone constantly interrupts you, dismisses your opinions, or makes you feel guilty for expressing your needs. The red flag isn't just their action, it's your hesitation to stand up for yourself. When you find yourself explaining away someone's behavior or feeling anxious before seeing them, those are signals that something is off. You cannot build a healthy connection when one person is always taking and the other is constantly trying to prove their worth. The truth is, emotional awareness is your first line of defense. When your gut tells you something feels wrong, that feeling is data. It's your intuition trying to protect you, but we've been conditioned to override it, to be polite, to keep the peace, to avoid conflict. The problem is that by silencing your intuition, you also silence your sense of safety. If someone constantly drains you, leaves you feeling small, or makes you doubt yourself, that's not love. It's control dressed up as affection. Recognizing that difference takes courage because it means facing the uncomfortable truth that not everyone who claims to care about you actually does. Sometimes red flags show up not in words but in energy. Pay attention to how your body reacts when you're around certain people. Do you feel calm and seen, or tense and defensive? The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. If you leave interactions feeling exhausted, anxious, or confused, that's your body waving a red flag. Learn to listen before it becomes a pattern that defines your days and drains your spirit. People often believe that noticing red flags makes them cynical, but it actually makes them wise. Recognizing them doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you love smarter. You stop confusing chemistry with compatibility, passion with peace, and intensity with intimacy. You stop giving endless chances to someone who keeps showing you who they are. Because love without respect is not love, it's dependency. You cannot save someone who doesn't want to change, but you can save yourself by stepping away. The hardest part is accepting that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Just because someone has been in your life for a long time doesn't mean they belong in your future. Loyalty becomes toxic when it's one-sided. You are not obligated to stay loyal to someone who is disloyal to your well-being. The moment you start prioritizing your peace over their approval, you begin to take your power back. Recognizing the red flags early doesn't make you cold or unkind. It makes you conscious. It means you've decided that your time, your energy, and your heart are too valuable to waste on people who don't respect them. Emotional detachment is power because it allows you to stay calm, clear, and in control even when chaos surrounds you. It's not about becoming cold or heartless. It's about mastering your emotions instead of letting them master you. In toxic relationships, emotions are often used as weapons. Guilt, fear, and manipulation become tools to keep you hooked. When you learn to detach emotionally, you take that power back. You stop reacting to every insult, every silent treatment, every guilt trip, and instead, you start responding with awareness. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop allowing other people's behavior to control your peace of mind. When you are emotionally entangled with someone toxic, your sense of self becomes blurred. You start measuring your worth through their moods, approval, or attention. You feel high when they're kind and shattered when they're cruel. This emotional roller coaster keeps you trapped, hoping that maybe one day things will change. But detachment breaks that cycle. It teaches you to separate what you feel from what is real. You can acknowledge their behavior without internalizing it. You can see their actions for what they are, projections of their own issues, and stop taking responsibility for fixing them. Emotional detachment allows you to observe instead of absorb. The power of detachment lies in your ability to stay grounded in your truth, no matter what someone else tries to make you believe. Toxic people thrive on reaction because reaction gives them validation and control. When you don't react, when you stay composed and centered, you take away their ability to manipulate your emotions. Silence becomes your shield. Stillness becomes your strength. You learn to protect your peace by not engaging in every argument, not explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, and not chasing people who choose to walk away. Detachment is also a practice of boundaries. It's the decision to respond with intention rather than impulse. You stop over-explaining, stop defending your choices, and stop seeking closure from people who never cared about giving it. You begin to understand that closure isn't something they provide. It's something you create for yourself. You detach not because you're indifferent, but because you finally realize that your peace is more important than proving a point. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you reinforce your self-respect. It's important to understand that emotional detachment doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of rewiring how you respond to pain and rejection. At first, you'll feel guilty for pulling back. You'll question if you're being too cold or unfair. But eventually you'll realize that protecting your energy isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. The more you detach, the clearer you see the situation. The fog of emotional confusion lifts, and what's left is clarity. You begin to recognize the patterns, the manipulation, the inconsistency that once kept you hooked. You start choosing logic over longing, facts over feelings. The strength of detachment is quiet. It's not loud revenge or dramatic exits. It's the calm decision to stop allowing someone to live rent-free in your mind. It's walking away without resentment because you finally understand that peace is worth more than being right. Emotional detachment is not a wall. It's a boundary with wisdom behind it. It's saying, I see what you're doing, and I choose not to play this game anymore. When you detach, you stop being a participant in someone else's chaos and start being the protector of your own energy. That's when real power begins to show. Not through anger, but through the calm that cannot be shaken. Boundaries aren't walls, they're the gates that protect your energy. People often mistake boundaries for rejection, but they're actually a form of respect, both for yourself and for others. When you set boundaries, you're not pushing people away, you're simply deciding where access to you begins and ends. In toxic relationships, boundaries are the first thing to be tested. Someone who benefits from your lack of boundaries will always see them as an attack. They'll call you selfish, distant, or difficult, not because you've done something wrong, but because they can no longer manipulate or control you the way they used to. Boundaries make toxic people uncomfortable because they expose where their power over you ends. Creating healthy boundaries starts with understanding what drains you and what sustains you. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you betray a small piece of yourself. It may seem harmless at first, agreeing to something to avoid conflict, giving another chance to keep the peace, but over time those small sacrifices accumulate into resentment and exhaustion. Boundaries are the antidote to that emotional depletion. They're how you teach others how to treat you. If you don't define your limits, someone else will define them for you, and usually not in your favor. The strength of your relationships is directly tied to the strength of your boundaries. The beauty of boundaries is that they don't require anyone else's approval to exist. You don't need to justify them or over-explain them. You simply enforce them with consistency and calm. That means not responding to every text immediately, not engaging in conversations that drain your energy, and not allowing someone to guilt you into things that make you uncomfortable. Boundaries are not about punishment, they're about clarity. They remove confusion and resentment because everyone knows what's acceptable and what's not. The moment you stop apologizing for protecting your peace is the moment you start living with integrity. Many people fear setting boundaries because they think it will make them lose people. But the truth is, boundaries only remove the people who were benefiting from your lack of them. The ones who genuinely care about you will respect your limits because they understand your worth. Boundaries filter your life. They separate those who value you from those who only use you. They show you who is capable of healthy connection and who is drawn to control. When someone reacts negatively to your boundaries, that's not a sign to back down. It's proof that they were crossing lines that never should have been crossed in the first place. Boundaries also require emotional discipline. You can't just set them once and expect others to honor them automatically. You have to reinforce them through your actions, not just your words. That means walking away when someone repeatedly disrespects your limits, even if it hurts. That means no longer explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. The more consistent you are, the stronger your boundaries become. And over time, you'll notice that the people who truly belong in your life will naturally align with those boundaries. Because respect doesn't need reminders. The most powerful boundaries are quiet and firm. They're not about cutting everyone off or building emotional walls. They're about knowing your capacity and protecting it without guilt. You can love someone deeply and still choose to love them from a distance if that's what keeps you sane. You can care without sacrificing yourself. You can give without depleting. That balance is what creates emotional freedom. Boundaries don't make you difficult. They make you healthy. They turn your emotional chaos into order, your self-doubt into confidence, and your relationships into choices rather than obligations. And when you finally understand that you are not responsible for keeping everyone comfortable, you begin to live a life that feels peaceful instead of performative. Self-respect over attachment is the choice to honor yourself even when it means letting go of someone you love. It's the decision to put your peace above your longing, your dignity above your desire to be chosen. In toxic relationships, attachment often disguises itself as love. You start confusing pain with passion, inconsistency with excitement, and attention with affection. You tell yourself that if you just love harder, stay longer, or forgive one more time, things will get better. But what you're really doing is abandoning yourself for the illusion of connection. Real love should never require you to shrink, silence your needs, or sacrifice your self-worth just to keep someone close. When you choose self-respect, you stop chasing the version of someone that only exists in your imagination. You stop waiting for the apology that will never come and the change that will never last. You begin to see that the relationship you were fighting for was built on hope, not reality. That realization hurts because it forces you to confront how much you've given to someone who never truly saw your value. But that pain becomes your teacher. It shows you that love without respect isn't love at all. It's emotional dependency dressed as devotion. When you respect yourself enough to walk away, you're not losing love, you're reclaiming your identity. Self-respect is not arrogance or pride, it's clarity. It's knowing that your worth isn't determined by how much someone wants you, but by how you treat yourself when they don't. It's realizing that silence can be stronger than explanation and distance can be more powerful than confrontation. When you prioritize self-respect, you start choosing peace over chaos, stability over confusion, and authenticity over attachment. You stop accepting mixed signals because you understand that someone who truly cares for you won't make you question where you stand. Love doesn't require you to beg for consistency. Attachment keeps you trapped in cycles of hope and disappointment. It feeds on the memories of good moments while ignoring the damage of the bad ones. You replay conversations, analyze every word, and wait for signs that things might return to how they were. But self-respect breaks that loop. It allows you to see that nostalgia isn't a reason to stay. It's just a reminder of what you once wished was real. You stop settling for potential and start demanding presence. You stop being addicted to their attention and start investing that energy into rebuilding your own strength. There's a quiet power in walking away with your dignity intact. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who can't see it. You don't need to explain your boundaries to someone who's made a habit of breaking them. The act of choosing yourself is both an ending and a beginning. It's the end of chasing validation and the beginning of genuine self-love. Self-respect reminds you that you deserve reciprocity. That love should feel safe, not suffocating. And once you internalize that truth, you stop tolerating anything that feels like less. Choosing self-respect over attachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring for yourself first. It's understanding that love shouldn't feel like survival. The right relationships will never ask you to betray yourself to keep them. You can still love deeply, but with discernment. You can still forgive, but without forgetting your worth. The moment you stop trying to prove you're enough for someone who can't appreciate you, you free yourself. You learn that peace is more fulfilling than attention, that solitude is better than chaos, and that walking away is sometimes the most powerful expression of love you'll ever make. Love for yourself. Rebuild, don't retaliate. Because your power is not in proving someone wrong, it's in proving to yourself that you can rise again. After leaving a toxic relationship, there's an instinctive desire to show the other person what they lost, to make them regret the way they treated you, to somehow make the pain worth it by seeking validation through revenge. But that energy keeps you bound to the very person who broke you. Retaliation feeds the wound, rebuilding heals it. True strength isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. It's the quiet, steady process of reclaiming your peace, piece by piece, until you no longer feel the need to look back. When you decide to rebuild, You take your focus off the damage and place it on your recovery. That's where transformation begins. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It happens through small, intentional acts of self-respect. You stop checking their social media. You stop replaying the arguments in your mind. You stop asking why and start asking what now? Every time you redirect your energy inward, you take a step toward freedom. Rebuilding is not about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about acknowledging that it did and choosing to grow from it rather than be defined by it. The process of rebuilding starts with forgiveness, but not the kind people often misunderstand. You don't forgive them for their sake, you forgive for yours. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. It's saying you won't let it poison you anymore. Holding on to resentment keeps you emotionally tethered to them. Letting go doesn't mean you excuse their behavior. It means you refuse to let it control your story. Every moment you spend hating someone is energy taken away from your own growth. You can't move forward if you're still focused on the wreckage behind you. Rebuilding also means rediscovering who you are without the influence of someone who constantly diminished you. Toxic relationships can make you forget your strength, your dreams, and your joy. They can make you question your worth and lose sight of what makes you, you. The rebuilding stage is about remembering that version of yourself before the damage, and then becoming even stronger than before. You start doing things that make you feel alive again. You reconnect with people who uplift you. You rebuild your confidence not through someone else's approval, but through your own achievements, however small. Healing doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it's just you learning to enjoy your own company again. One of the most powerful signs of growth is your ability to stay calm when faced with what once broke you. That's when you know you've rebuilt, when their name no longer triggers pain and your peace no longer depends on their absence or presence. You've learned to create your own validation. The person who once had the power to destroy you no longer has a hold on your emotions, and that freedom is priceless. Rebuilding teaches you resilience, the kind that no one can take away. Retaliation keeps you stuck in a story of pain. Rebuilding allows you to write a new one. You rise not to show them what they lost, but to remind yourself what you've gained: clarity, strength, and self-respect. You realize that the best revenge is a life that feels peaceful, fulfilled, and authentic. You stop needing closure from them because you've already created it within yourself. You start living not to prove your worth, but because you finally understand it. Rebuilding means reclaiming your narrative and stepping into a version of yourself that is wiser, stronger, and unshakably at peace. That is how you turn pain into power, not by fighting back, but by moving forward with grace.